Hello and welcome to the RTO Show. I'm your host, Pete Shau. I have a very important guest today. But first, what I always want you to do, make sure you go to the website. Make sure you go to the RTO Show Podcast.com. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss podcasts like this one, the one you definitely want to see, because my guest, Dan Jobrack from DataTrue, is here to lay some information on us. To be honest with you, with everything going on in the world right now, I think we need as much information as we can get. So make sure that you subscribe to the newsletter. Don't be afraid to be a sponsor on there. We need you, just like you want to get the information. We need you to sponsor us because you know what? We do this just for you, for the RTO community. Dan, how are you doing today? All the way from, well, a little bit off mic. Dan's been everywhere. He's been a little traveling at least last couple of days, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Done some vacation, some traveling out here in beautiful Montana.
Now, when I first saw that you were from Montana, I'm like, there's 5 other people in Montana, right? There's like, it doesn't have much of a population. What it does has absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. The only thing I can tell you is the winters are probably ridiculously harsh out there.
Well, it depends on your perspective. My philosophy is it's never cold. It's people that are not dressed warmly enough.
I am straight Floridian. That is a cold, cold statement right there. But Dan, listen, I've known you for years and years and years, and we're talking about way back. You've done DataTrue for a long time, since the early 2000s. Is that right?
Yeah, this is our 19th year. Yeah.
So going all the way back, we're talking about a time when DataTrue was, I remember as we did things, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, when somebody came into the stores, probably part of our verification process was dialing a phone number and putting in some of their information, and we got back something, right? We would either trigger something or we would say, hey, it's okay, no worries. Part of the things that we're talking about today, guys, is there's a lot going out there in the world. You want to be safe with the information that you have, and you want to be safe with your products that you put out there. Dan has not only a way to kind of look up front and say, this is probably a good transaction, but as things happen, you might want to be able to reach out and go and get what you need from somebody who maybe is having a hard time. They've moved. They're not in touch with you like they should. Maybe they're embarrassed to call you, but you still need that information. You need to reach out. You need to touch them. This is one of the tools that make it happen. And this is not just somebody who started it. Dan's been doing this for a long, long time. There's a lot of renditions of rent to own that Dan has seen. And not only that, Dan, take me back a little bit. You didn't start out in rent to own. You actually started out in a completely different area. And as you started going through, it just seemed like when you made DataTrue, it kind of went into that along with the other things that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of this conceptually started back in my Navy days, back in the 70s and the 80s. I was in crypto intel, and we dealt with puzzles and figuring things out. I spent 10 years in payday loan. And that was kind of the genesis of this mentality. What you were referring to earlier is a system that used to be called Teletrack. And people would type in a social security number, and they'd come back and they'd tell you they're on the system, they're not on the system, etc. You know, and Teletrack at that time, they had all kinds of ideas of what they wanted to do. That never happened. They ended up building just a database before they ended up going bye-bye. And they made their bones in the payday loan industry. When they lost that opportunity, they shifted into RTO. So you guys got that experience. This was back in the 90s. So
it was.
When I left payday loan after 10 years, I went to work for Fidelity National Credit as a national director of business development. And we were dealing with some major accounts and dealing with collections and whatnot. And when I say major accounts, I mean Chevron, AT&T. They were big accounts. And there was always something missing in my opinion, in the tools that we had available to us. So I worked on a program and presented it, and it never took off with them. So I left the company and went out on my own, and I had a partner who's still with me. We've been together since 1999, even before the genesis of DataTrue. And we created DataTrue. The idea was to offer what Teletrack was promising that never delivered. Instead of a database, just some type of live data accessibility for a customer to come in that would verify all their information. It didn't even, and that was all it was originally. There wasn't even a skip trace product at that time. It was to verify the data that somebody would come in to know whether they were telling you the truth or they were just trying to put one over on you, take your money and run. Some of my clients that I was dealing with back then when I was with business development, with national business development, I pitched it to them. I said, if there was something like this out there, what would you think? Oh, are you kidding? That would be that would be from heaven. And they had payday loan stores, but they also had rent to own stores, and out of Kansas. And so when I left, I reached out to them. They got on board immediately. We got an invitation initially, and this 19 years ago, and hooked up with James McAlpine. And when he was over at Rent Direct Nationwide, went to a
Right.
couple shows over there. And then we went to the next show we went to simultaneously was with Trib, Meeting of the Minds, back in 08, 09, something like that. And it was amazing. I mean, we were the hottest thing in the room. The crowds would gather around the booth, 15, 20 people. We were doing live demos on verification. And out of nowhere, 60, 70 companies came on board within 2 shows. And we were on our way. And then suggestions, questions, recommendations from our clients. Hey, could you guys do this? Hey, how hard would it be to find this out? Literally, we started with 8 or 9 products, and we've got over 40 today, almost all of which came from the rent-to-own industry's suggestions, recommendations, or ideas.
Well, I mean, that's great. Well, considering that the demographics of customers are pretty much exactly the same,
Yeah.
that would be where you were to where you are now. Coming into this, like, how was it to create? I mean, you basically created this program from scratch. You guys wrote the programming on this.
Yes.
So what makes now that you've been in it for 19 years, this idea, because you said there's this timeline, right? As you've gone, you started somewhere and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. Where does all the data come from, right? Because I remember in the Teletrack days, you would put somebody into the system and then they would sit there, right? And if something happened, I would report it. And if nothing happened, it would come back that nothing has happened.
Right.
Is that kind of the way DataTrue started, where it was like, hey, there's this piece here. I'm going to input somebody, and you know what? Miss Jones doesn't have anything going on. I'm going to report back that there's nothing going on. Now, if she does, I'm going to report that there is. And then later on, if another store decides to report it and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm putting this information, I'm getting pinged on Miss Jones, whether it was down the street or in another state. Is that how original DataTrue started collecting their information, or was there something else that added to that to say, hey, this might be a good, or you might want to pause on this rental?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pete. And I get asked that question a lot because people are curious, because there's so many things out there. There's bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. There's a TLO. There's all these different information databases out there. When this first launched, one of the things that didn't sit well with me in the beginning was a database is garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as what people have input and what they've built, which was the flaw with Teletrack. They on the system, off the system. They came back and they started reporting all these different hits on a person, and they weren't bad hits. They were just where that person had done business or is currently doing business. And that was always an area, a bone of contention for me. So when we built DataTrue, my idea was that we didn't want to have a database. We wanted to access live data out there. Now, not all live data is created equal. The majority of live data that most people access when it comes to the high risk industry are credit headers from the bureaus. And those can be expensive, but in this particular high risk industry, whether it's or environment, whether it's payday loan, signature title loan, whether it's rent to own, lease to own, buy here, sell here, these are all cash and carry type businesses, for the most part, that do not deal with credit reports. And they actually advertise often, no credit necessary. So you're in the high risk industry, you're taking the risk. Taking a high risk to me does not mean we'll take any risk. It does not mean we'll give away the farm just to generate a sale. You still want to make a good decision. We wanted a program that verified data, but did not turn somebody away. We never wanted to be the one to say, you shouldn't serve that customer. You know what the risks are. What we wanted to do was we wanted to create a system that gave you as much information on that person as we can ascertain from what they're giving you in their agreement, in their application, whatever process is used, so that you can make a better decision at that counter. Nothing's going to beat the eyeball to eyeball contact. You can't replace that ever, that gut feeling. But there are people that are pretty good. The person standing in front of you, one wearing a wife beater and the other wearing Armani. Which one's the dishonest person? We take all that away and we just analyze the data, which comes from public sources. To your question earlier, where it comes from, it's not a database. We access live sources and some databases, but we don't maintain a database. So we started, as I said, with just a few products. We tap into we got over 40 products now, and we tap into over 40 different information providers that all, like a funnel, parse into our system and produce instantly on the screen a result, which red flags information that is either accurate and true or less than accurate or less than true. I've never been one to say somebody's lying to you. That's your place. For me, we just want to say, that's not where they live. Maybe they forgot their address. I don't know. But you want to have those kinds of information available to you before you make a decision to sign on the dotted line. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to better prepare our clientele to make smarter decisions. That was the genesis. True.
So as you're going into it, right, you have this, and which is, I love the idea, and I love the way you're stating it, because it's true. A lot of people think that this conversation will be about you shouldn't, or maybe this is a bad idea. The conversation really is, let me give you a gamut of information that you can make the decision that you're going to make on. Not I'm going to tell you to do it. You decide off of what we're talking about, and you say you can discern this is a good situation for me, or I'm willing to take that risk, because this is a risk business. Rent to own is a risk business. Plain and simple.
Most definitely.
And a lot of the reasons that they're coming to us is because they've had situations in other places, whether they couldn't return it, whether they did move, whether they were put in a bad situation, and now they have to come in and they still have those needs. And it's up to the rent-to-own industry to decide good, bad, or indifferent. Now, as you're talking about 40 different places and 40 different lines of things that you do, let's start a little bit at the beginning, because that's a lot to chew on. What were some of the core products that you started coming out with in the beginning that allowed the rental-owned dealers to make better decisions on the rentals that they were making?
Okay, so the first product we rolled out was information verification on front-end transactions. There was a large amount, and still is to this day, a large amount of first transaction defaults, especially in payday loan. We know, coming from that industry, a first transaction default is premeditated. It's not something that say, oh, I went and got a transaction and now I can't pay for it. They knew that 2 weeks ago when they came and picked it up. Some of the other transactions we were dealing with were longtime customers where you've long made your profit margin and you'd like to maintain a relationship. But if you can't, you can't. No harm, no foul. They'll be back when they need you. They know who you are. But those first time transactions, that was a problem. We found through study and now empirical data that these premeditated transactions come in and give you enough information to get a transaction from you, to get that dining room set, to get that payday loan, to get that computer. But they also give you just enough information to cut and run when they don't want to pay you. You won't be able to find them. We wanted to eliminate that. So when the system was created, what it did was it would parse through our information providers. And there was a time years ago that I would say, when somebody says, well, where do you get your information? I says, would you like a list? A list of what? A list of who we get it from. Why would you do that? Well, you can build your own system. It's going to take you a little bit of money and some expertise, or for less than $1, you can run one through me. And obviously that's the way it ended up. They opted for less than $1. So what the transaction would do, Pete, is they'd walk in, they'd fill out their application. This is from a 30,000 foot view, whether it was by paper or typed into the system, and then parse through DataTrue. Originally, it was right through our server. Now we have all kinds of API setups, RTO Pro, VersaRent, et cetera, et cetera. But originally, they would type in the information, very, very little information, actually. You're collecting all the same information anyway. But it'd take you about, I used to tell people, it'll take you about 3 minutes to enter the information into our server if you have a 2-minute smoke break in the middle of your 3 minutes, because it's really, really fast. So then what you would do is you'd send it to us instantly right on the computer, and it would immediately on the screen, in 3 to 5 seconds, give you the report. What we say at DataTrue is red is wrong. So when a report comes back, some of it's in black and blue and some of it's in red. If it's red, it means the information that you provided was less than accurate. You got the customer standing there, clean it up before you sign on the dotted line. Oh, I forgot I moved. I have a different phone number. I jokingly tell customers all the time when it comes to the phone number, and this is true, by the way, I have 7 children. And at any given time, I don't like 2 or 3 of them. So if I if I change my phone number, maybe they're not going to get it. And I say that tongue in cheek. The reality is we don't remember everybody we've told there have been changes. Case in point, customer goes into a store. They've been your customer for the last year and a half. You haven't seen them in 60 days. They lost their cell phone or they changed their cell phone number. They walk in to do a transaction. And what does the employee say? All your information the same, Mr. Smith? Yeah, nothing's changed. Enter, enter, enter. But something has changed. They don't remember whether they told that outlet that there was a change. So we wanted to create something that took all of those human elements off the table and made it black and white, that you can look at and see what was true, what was not true. That was the beginning. And it cleaned up data. And in fact, it started building empirical information and data that we were able to analyze, that when DataTrue was properly run, and this is essential, on the front end in 3 different categories: new clients, clients that have been inactive for 60 days or longer, or the worst ones of all, the upgrade. That's the guy who wanted the 55-inch out of the box brand new and decided, the vendor decided, the client decided, I'm just not feeling it. Try this smaller one first. Prove yourself a good payer, and then we'll upgrade. And as soon as they get that upgrade, they're gone. They're out of Dodge on that first payment. So in those 3 situations, we've learned, and we've learned this from the RTO industry, that these were the factors. When DataTrue is run on the front end, that very first product of ours, that front end verification, if it's run in those 3 situations, on average, 1 out of 3 skips is completely avoided. Because the information that you'll see you've got somebody who's giving you info. Oh, I don't live there anymore. I forgot my address. Nobody forgets their address. You run the social through the system. If you take social security numbers, that goes in the system. It comes back that you're dead. I forgot I died. These types of situations you want to know in advance. And that's what that front end system does. That's what we started with.
So you mentioned that, as you went into these events, there were guys lined up around the corner. There were a lot of things that they saw in DataTrue and said, you know what, this is something that I want to be a part of. Give me some names. Who were some of the first people to line up and say, DataTrue is going to be where I need to be? What do you remember back then who it was that first came aboard and kind of decided this was a great idea?
The very first ones that came on board were Willie and Jim Cole. They were the very first RTO customers that were signed up back in 7, I believe, out of Wichita, Kansas. It wasn't long after that Terry Bevel over at Buddy's came on board. That was, I think you were around back in those days too.
I was. I remember Bevel, yeah.
Yep. Terry came on board, and as a matter of fact, Terry later in this podcast, we'll talk about one of the newer products, the Alert One, which was originally a brainstorm of Terry's back in 1985. And
wow,
everybody would. Mike Tissett over at Countryside, Keith Ferriman. I mean, I can go on and on. There's people that are no longer in the industry, that either retired or are no longer with us, that over the years have come on board. I've had people walk by. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember who it was, but somebody walked by. They had a half a dozen stores, and they were asking me about it. And they asked me that same question. Well, who in this room is on DataTrue? And I look up and I go, him. And I point over, and Mike Tissett just happened to walk by. And Mike, bless his heart, amazing customer, wonderful relationship. We love going to his show out in Ohio every year. He turns and goes, Mike. Mike turns around like that. He says, you use these guys? He says, absolutely, wouldn't use anyone else. And kept on walking without missing a beat. So I said to this particular gentleman, I said, so what else can I tell you? He says, you don't need to tell me anything else. He wouldn't use it if it wasn't of value.
He wouldn't.
And that was it. Selling DataTrue to a potential customer in the RTO industry is a fun job. And the reason it's a fun job is because it's enjoyable, like what we're doing right now. There's no work involved for me. I tell you what we do. You know what your needs are. You know whether you're having charge-off problems, skip tricks problems, decision-making problems on risk values, etc. Nobody knows that better than the person I'm speaking to at a show or on the phone. Nobody knows it better. I tell you what we do. In 90, I'd say at least 95% of the cases or more, every deal gets closed because there's a need and it's extremely affordable.
So let's go. We're not going back as far. You started this. You get a partner. You guys develop it.
Mhm.
We're at the shows. You've got some pretty heavy hitters that are coming on board, and they're saying, "Listen, I know what's going on." You know, especially Terry. Gotta rest him, but I mean, he was probably one of the pioneers going far back as I can remember. So they
Yep.
see the benefit of this. They start going, and then the ideas start rolling in. Dan, I think this is a great idea. Dan, I think that's a great idea. Maybe let's add some of this and tweak that and something. So as it starts rolling up, you're on your way to 40 plus products. You don't know it yet. What starts rolling out that, at that point in time, as we're going from 2010 to 2015 and a little bit further, like what's on the horizon? What are people looking for that now is like, you know what, we need to expand into this? Because at the later time, I want to cover a lot of the things that I think and a lot of things I see, but I want to make sure that everybody understands, where did it come from? This isn't a fly by night. This is something that developed literally through the RTO industry for people who thought this is a great idea, but let me add this, let me add that. Where can this really help me more here or there? And so in that time frame, what did you add to it?
Well, once we got past the information side, the next logical lowest hanging fruit, if you will, was I said earlier, this was designed to verify information, and 1 out of 3 skips gets detected. And you either get cleaner information or you don't do the transaction. But what about the other 2 that do get by? Maybe they started out as good customers. Maybe they were longtime customers. Maybe things happened. Maybe they were dishonest. Maybe they were completely honest and life happened. Somebody died, somebody lost a job, somebody got divorced. They want to be good customers. You want them to be good customers. You don't want to lose them if they're a secure source of clientele. But life deals cards to people all the time that are not welcomed, and you have to deal with that. So the next logical thing, and part of it came from guys like Terry, when we developed the API side of it. We'll talk about it later. Larry Carrico's company over at SKC. It just all kinds. I mean, Best Way. All these folks that we dealt with, they offered us different tweaks, and the logical process for us was to go from verifying.
Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro.
To finding those people that don't want to be found, that are those 2 out of the 3. So we started the development of the skip trace tools. And originally we went because we had a lot of the information that was necessary. If we can just find the right information providers, pull out pieces of what was needed and kind of put them together, whether it's a utility company network, whether it's the Reebok system through the old the phone system, whether it is credit headers. It doesn't really matter. Some of it's proprietary, some of it's not. We can pull it all together, pull these pieces together, and working with our IT director, we could put together a program that would help find process of elimination, if you will, find where these people that don't want to be bothered or don't want to be found, where they are, enabling a client of ours to either get back their product or get back some of the money that's owed to them, or just offer a way to help out for somebody who was, as you mentioned earlier, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they don't want to call in. They've never been in that situation before, and it's not that they're bad people, they're not. And then there are those that are bad people, which is what that's that 1/3 you're catching up front. How do we find these ones on the back? So initially, it was an idea that came from Terry. And he says, I came up with this brainstorm, Dan, back in 1985 of a national skip stolen database where we can put information in and anybody that subscribes to it can pull those charge-offs up, see that person's history before it happened. So we built it. And it was called Skip. I think it was Alert. It was actually the original SkipFind Plus that then became Alert One. Now, we still have SkipFind Plus today. We still have Alert One today. We'll talk about those in a while. They had nothing to do with that original product, but we repurposed the name because it fit. But in the original process, the idea would be a national skip stolen database. We rolled it out. As a matter of fact, my partner went to an FRDA meeting, I want to say back in 2011, 2012, right in there. And that's where it was rolled out to FRDA. We got a lot of folks on board in the beginning, but it seemed that as a national skip stolen database, it really didn't apply to somebody like Chad out in Nebraska. Because the people that are in Nebraska really aren't the same people that are in Florida. And there was such a huge concentrate in the southeast corner of the country of RTO clientele compared to the rest of the country. So it didn't really get the traction and take off to be a national. It ended up just being regional. So we shut it down. Didn't give it another thought. Then we started thinking about how we can use the shell of what it was in our system. Because this would therefore become database crossed over to our live data to continue to work and develop other products. And then we started advancing the Skip products. We came out with People Find. This was a very narrow base search. It went through 4 different categories: Social Security search, reverse address, reverse phone system, which covered all 3 phones, the VoIP, cell phone, and landline, and an email system. Well, as things continue to progress, we sidelined the email because it ended up being used more, and it should be, by the way, for marketing, where you can send out emails, and a lot of our clients do that. The reason we sidelined it is because the other 3 Skip products, we offered them in a no record return, no charge environment. We either gave you what you're looking for, or we didn't charge you for the submission. So then we started saying, well, we need something bigger. We need something more robust. And then Pursue was born. And Pursue is by far our hottest product. It actually, when working hand in hand with the front end as a skip trace product, nothing compares to it. Most of our clients, if not all of our clients, will swear by it, that there is nothing else out there like Pursue. You almost think you're looking at a credit report. I mean, it could be a huge report with tons of data points. And it's designed to help you find people that are trying not to be found, so you can re-engage and reestablish the relationship, or get your product back, or get what's owed to you, whether it's money, product, or both. In the shed industry, we found out that we can find other properties that people are connected to, so we added that to the system. They got the shed, they took it apart, they took it next door to their neighbor's house or their father's house. They're also connected to that property, and they put it over there, and now you can't find your shed. So our system, and we've expanded into all different avenues where we can find that person who doesn't want to be found. And in this industry, that's those 2 out of 3. In most cases, these people don't want to be found. They think they have one over on you. I got a television, I got a dining room set, I got a shed, I got a car, and now nobody's looking for me. And eventually you'll forget about it. Well, let's say it's a TV. Let's say it's a 55-inch big screen. Chances are by the time you catch up to them 5 years from now without DataTrue, they're playing tic-tac-toe using a quarter on the screen. You don't want the screen back. But maybe they owe you $2,200. Be nice to have some of that back. So it was the natural progression of verifying data and then finding the people who got under the wire on you. Maybe they used a fake social. And when they started with you, you didn't have the information to verify that kind of stuff. Enter DataTrue. All that stuff is now available.
How many of your customers take that information, right? So you have some customers that, and we're talking about RTO entities, whether they're the shed side, which we'll talk about that because I'm glad you mentioned that, or the traditional side, or the tire and wheel side, or whatever side it is, right? And they go, all right, we're going to start using your services. We're going to check them on the front end. And maybe if they make some bad decisions, we'll check them on the back end. But there's also like these lists that maybe have been untouched for a little while, and it's like, you know what, for this amount of time, we weren't using DataTrue to see if maybe we can do some type of recovery, whether it's making payment plans with people who we finally get a hold of, or having a return product, or just having conversations. Period. Was that a chunk of it as you started going into this? Did you get these big file cabinets of guys just walking up and going, "Hey, I have all this issue here. What can I do to find A, B, and C?" Because to me, that seems like a big dump of information. How do you get all the information from point A, a dealer, to point B, where your information source starts doing all this information? Like,
You know,
is it a data file dump? Are they just typing away from the files? Like, how would they get it over if that was the case? At least back then, anyways. I mean, now almost everything's digital, but
well, yeah, back then there wasn't a way to do all that without entering them in onesie twosie type of a thing. And that's a great segue into one of our 3 new products in the last 18 months, or 15 months, actually. We rolled out a product called SkipFind Plus. I told you we repurposed a couple names because it made sense. So SkipFind Plus, SFP, it addressed exactly that. What do you do with these files? What I refer to it as, jokingly, I refer to it the Chinese filing cabinet. Okay, now the Chinese filing cabinet, I coined this years and years ago because every business has one. What is a Chinese filing cabinet? It's a 4-drawer standard filing cabinet. And the bottom drawer, there's no bottom on it. You just put stuff in there that you never want to see again because you've exhausted all your efforts, and it goes all the way to China. So what do you do with these files? Well, SkipFind Plus was born. We found a way to maintain an alert system. Okay, and this is a subscription product. I think we only have 2 subscription products. Everything else is pay as you go, either in in an a la carte environment or an unlimited access environment for a flat fee. So SkipFind Plus is one of our newer products that is a subscription. I rolled it out, meeting of the minds, last year. We rolled out SkipFind Plus. It retails for $25. Because of our relationships with the RTO industry, that's $25 per month per location. The RTO industry relationship that we have, we reduced it down to $20 per month per store. And when I rolled it out, we rolled it out at $15. It was $10 off. I mean, that's almost half off. And anytime I talk about it in a podcast like this, or if I go to a show, I always grandfather in that $15 fee, which if you've got to, I think Larry has over 70 or 80 stores, that adds up. It adds up per year. So the idea behind SkipFind Plus was I call it the gift that keeps on giving. You can enter them in one at a time, or we can provide you a spreadsheet that we have that it's an Excel, and you can upload the entire spreadsheet. So you say to an employee, here, this is from the Chinese filing cabinet. Here's 25. Enter these in this month, and next month I'll give you 25 more. And you just keep on entering them. And then you put them back in the cabinet. You don't worry about them again. I refer to it as the gift that keeps on giving because there's a button on there when you enter it. Last name, first name, social. That's all you need. More is always better. If you want to put in a phone number, if you want to put in an address, even though you know both of those are dead ends, they're never really dead ends in the information world. Okay? And then there's a button on there that you click that says, a little box that says, I'm watching. That's it. And you save it and you walk away. This person now shows up. Let's say you're in Tampa, and this person absconded with your stuff, and now they're in San Diego. So I'll grab one of my San Diego customers, public storage. There's a public storage in San Diego, okay, or San Antonio, one of the police departments there in Texas. They go in and they run a DataTrue on the front end. Customer comes in, they're just verifying. That triggers an immediate email to the customer that entered the skip, telling you, oh, here's Pete Shau, and here's his current address and phone number. There's no proprietary violation because it's not telling you who ran it. It's just telling you another DataTrue customer ran this on, in this example, Pete, and here's Pete's new contact information. You pick up the phone, you call Pete and say, hey, Pete, it's Dan over at Dan's Rent-to-Own. Remember me? How'd you find me? I don't know. I know a guy who knows a guy, and then you re-engage to try to get. Yeah. So that's the gift that keeps on giving, and that's SkipFind Plus. And this is all part of ideas that came from clients that we toyed with and said, well, how can we develop this to be a productive product? And that was one of the 3 recent ones that we rolled out.
So How did we get into the shed business? You mentioned that, and I wanted to talk about that because a lot of our guests are finally starting to see the show now from another side of the coin. And when I say that, it's the tire and wheel side, the shed side. We didn't talk about it that much, but they're there and they're huge. When did you make that shift over to the RTO shed side and start servicing that industry as well?
We've been servicing sheds for at least 16 years. Not we don't have the same presence that we have in the rent to own or the payday loan industries, but in the shed industry, we had a dozen or so clients all over the country. I went to a trade show, I want to say back in 9. And while I was there, I drove down to one of our clients who was a buy here, pay here, cash and carry car dealership. And I want to say it was like in Chickasha, if I remember correctly. So, and it was Kansas. But while I was there was somebody who had reached out to me who was in Texas who owned a shed business. So I went to that business. I have to get his permission to say his name, so I won't. But let's just say I
It's
went
okay.
down there. But we're in the fraud protection business, so I'm certainly not going to give up. I'm not going to cross that line. So I go down there to Texas, and I drive out there, and I get a tour of their place, and just amazing what they were doing with sheds that look like houses. It was amazing, and they built them there and everything. And I spoke to the owner. He came on board right away, and this was, like I said, back in 09. And other ones trickled in from that. I mean, it's the same way in our private investigations and police divisions. We picked up a couple, and then word of mouth starts to go out there, and suddenly we have a PI division. So we didn't really create a shed division because we only had about a dozen different clients spread around the country. But the shed division is big business. 40% of all sheds are rent to own. I got 5 of them here in Montana within 10 minutes of my house. Of course, in Montana, we all have sheds. So, but they're everywhere. And so to your question, when did we jump in there? And we actually brought on board in November an executive sales director for the shed division, Ryan Farnsworth. I brought him to a couple of shows. Ryan will be at a couple of the upcoming shows, and then we'll be at Shed Week as well, and that's Ryan's baby. So at RTO World last year, a gentleman came up to me prior to the show opening up. They were having the APRO meetings, and he's connected to the APRO side of it as a rent-to-own shed guy. And he came up to the booth, and he wasn't wearing any credentials because he wasn't there to attend that show. He was there before the doors opened. So he came in, he walked up and says, I'm curious what you do. He walked around the room. I told him. He said, oh, my goodness, man, do we need you. So we got to talking. Next thing you know, he's telling me, here's the contact information. You need to be at Shed Week next month in Knoxville, Tennessee. And he was on the board at the time. I believe he had just left the year before, but he had all the contacts. And I said, well, what do you do now that you're not doing that? He said, oh, no, I'm in the industry. I work for so-and-so. And he gave me the name. And he told me where they were from. And I says, you know something? I've been to your town. He said, oh, come on. I said, no, I have. Back in 09, I was there. I went and saw so-and-so. He says, that's our company. I says, you're a client. He said, well, I didn't know. So that all got taken care of. Now they're rolling it. They're rolling fine with it. But then we went to Shed Week that next month. We couldn't get there in time to get a booth. So we just kind of walked around and got the lay of the land. We'll be there this year. And that's how we entered the shed industry. And now we've added a whole handful of shed companies just since Ryan came on board that will be at Shed Week as well. And of course, that is the next, I expect that to be the next explosive division at DataTrue, of which we have several. Rent to own and shed is just 2 of the several divisions that we serve.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Shau here from the RTO Show Podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Yeah, I want to say right now that I didn't know how big the shed industry was until recently. And just because I've been part of the traditional side and, we service the traditional side, and I actually didn't even know how big the tire and wheel was until I came over to this side. So as I've been, expanding my horizon, so to speak, and I'm being able to see this, I definitely want to bring that part on the show because I want people to understand like there is so much of this out there. This industry is a lot bigger. When we say rent to own and we were on the furniture side, we kind of just thought it's the furniture side. No, it is huge. The shed side, and you got to think, when we're talking about what is a common ticket look like in the RTO world as far as traditional? Well, that really depends because I have things as small as lamps or as big as an entire living room set or a bedroom set or a package that encompasses both, right? So if you go in between, it could be a $29.99 item. It could be a $34.99 item with some inflation, maybe $39.99 item, right? A week. When you're talking about a shed, though, and you're talking about, hey, I've got this living room set. Maybe it's $14.99 cash price or $2,000 cash price or whatever. Sheds aren't starting at $2,000. If you get a brand new shed, you're talking about $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000 for a small, whatever. Now you start getting a 10 by 16 with 2 barn doors and a little, window up top. You're talking about $16,000 shed, right? And
Absolutely.
so now the item ticket is completely different. So even though my customer count might be a little different, in other words, the units, let me phrase that. The unit count is different. The unit count cost infinitely more. So even though I'm selling, I've got one agreement to that person, I've got one agreement to that person. Well, that agreement starts at $16,000, where this agreement might start at $1,000. And so you really don't know how much it is. But I can tell you right now, every time I'm driving down the street, there are and you say 5, I have to agree with you. There's probably like 5 or 6 around my house within, if I was to go even 20 miles, I'd probably say maybe more, maybe double that. They're everywhere around here. And I don't live that far outside of Tampa. Okay. I live in Land O'Lakes. I am literally one stop on 275 or 75 right outside of Tampa. This is not any rural country, and they are everywhere. I mean, everywhere. You start hitting out to the outskirts like Dead City, Sever Hills, Spring Hill. I mean, there are sheds everywhere. So this is really good to know for everybody who's thinking, well, this is a one-trick pony. This is only for one. No, this encompasses all of the rent-to-own industry, and very well, I might add. I won't go too far into all the other businesses that you cover. I mean, you said PI. I didn't even know you guys had a PI division.
Oh, it's a big division for us. Private investigators, landlords, people fill out applications to rent apartments. So we have those. Human resources departments for verifying information on employees, which goes hand in hand with our latest product, which is the new criminal background check, which I rolled out to you guys, to your industry. I rolled it out for less than $12, and there's no waiting period. It's instant right on your screen. It goes right to the NCIC, and it's an instant criminal background check.
You know what? I was going to wait a little bit, but let's talk about that because that had some. I remember we were talking about FRDA, which was not that long ago. You kind of blew my socks off. I really, when you said some of those things and how instantaneous it was, I was doing stuff with, and I won't mention the company, but we were trying to bring people on, and it took sometimes 3 to 6 days to get something back. Now, in the environment that we're in, if I'm trying to get somebody aboard and they have to wait an additional 3 to 6 days after the interview process, and I've said they're okay, well, I obviously can't bring them on until I know that they're okay, right? Because if I bring them on, I've already brought them on, they're on the system and they're on the books, and now I realize, hey, this probably wasn't the right person to get. But who can wait another week to get another paycheck, right? I mean, this is a go time. People are in need of the jobs that they have, the income the revenues that they need to pay the bills, feed the family. So I would lose some really good talent to other locations that were able to do it faster. So you're saying that some of the information, not just to be able to find some skip trace people, but you have stuff that can bring back, what is it, DMV information and some background information extremely quickly for HR services to bring people aboard?
Yeah, our criminal background check is an instant report. I rolled it out for $11.99. We don't give it to the stores. I mean, usually that stays in the hands of a decision maker, an HR department, etc. You don't want people checking on their exes or their clients or anything like that. But yeah, the idea was that, and you were right. It's not just waiting 6 days. That wasn't the issue for me when I came up with this idea to do this. And my partner and I discussed, the pros and cons and what it would take to roll this out. The idea was that when you get a good candidates don't wait around for you to call. They're looking for jobs. And when somebody offers them a job, they're taking that job. They're looking for a job. And while you're waiting 3, 4, 5 days, in some cases longer, for a report to come back, if it's a clean report, you call them up, hey, I got great news for you. A week ago Monday, you came in for an interview. We're going to offer you a job. I mean, I'm working. So those are the first ones that go. So you don't want to wait on those. So yeah, you can put some very, very limited information in the system, and it literally goes through the national system and comes back to the NCIC and comes back and tells you if they got a criminal background, if they've been convicted, if there's some vehicle stuff going on in there, especially since you deal with drivers. All that stuff's in there. Anytime that the court enters something on that person, you might have 7 different subjects on one person, all dealing with the same transaction, but they went back to court 3 or 4 times. They pled guilty. It's all in there. Now, it's not guaranteed. There is no guaranteed system. If there was, I'd have sold the company and I'd retire very, very wealthy. But it's a solid system. When I say not guaranteed, not every agency in this country it reports. Some of the rural areas, they don't report. Felonies are always going to get reported. I mean, a felony has to be reported. If I'm living in Kentucky and I move to Montana and I walk into Bass Pro Shop and I want to buy a handgun, I can't buy that if I have a felony. So felonies are always going to hit. When it comes to drivers, what our clients are doing is they're saying, look, I'm going to extend you a job, Pete, but we have to wait for our insurance company for 5 days or 6 days on the driving record. So we're going to hire you. We're going to start training you. And if that comes back dirty, we're going to have to let you go. Is there anything you want to tell me before I run that? You'd be surprised. People say, or they don't show up, which gives you your answer. So that is the newest product that you and I spoke about at FRDA when we also spoke about Alert One and what we should do with that. And that one's a doozy as well. We should probably touch on that if you want.
Well, let's do that now. I mean, we're there. We're talking about some ways not only that you're able to help to skip trace, not only are we able to really kind of start digging into how you've got here, what you're able to do. Now we're expanding to some of the front end versus just the back end, especially with the hiring, because that's super important. What is the Alert One? And I know that's probably like the one shining star that I've been really wanting to talk about and kind of dig into. Talk to me about that and how that works.
Alert One, originally from Terry's brainstorm of a national skip stolen database, which was on the back end, we moved it to the front end and repurposed the programming and kept the name because it made sense. Alert One. Alert is something that happens up front, not on the back. You want to be alerted to something. So what can we do with this? So what we did was we took the Alert One system and we made it an early warning system. So let's say you have 10 locations, and if somebody goes into store number 101, and a week later they go into store 105, store 105 needs to know that they were in store 101. It doesn't matter whether a transaction was secured in the first store or not. The first thing that's going to happen when they run them through DataTrue, across the screen in bright red and white letters, it's going to say, alert, alert, alert. A transaction was run at a different location, and it'll give you the phone number of that location on this person on such and such a date. Now, nothing proprietary has been exchanged. But in your industry, I have learned from your industry, the RTO industry, that, and it was similar to payday loan. If I've got an RTO store in my town and I got 3 competitors, I know who they are. They know who I am. It's friendly competition. And we share knowledge of people that are bad players, because bad players aren't just bad for me, they're bad for everybody. Bad players for you are bad players for me, and nobody wants those people in the system. So not only we can connect those 10 stores within a company, I can connect companies. I can connect regions, states, etc. As long as everybody agrees, yeah, I want to be connected to a Buddy's or a Best Way. I want to be connected. Again, no proprietary information is being exchanged. We had a situation. I'm going to leave off the names of the companies, if you may. We'll call them a company Curly, Larry, and Moe. Okay, a husband and wife separately went in to see Curly. Curly's owner calls me up and he says, "Hey, Dan, Alert One's not working." I says, "What do you mean?" Curly's owner, and he says, "I ran this person in, the husband and wife. They hit me in 3 of my stores." This was in Florida, by the way. So he said, I said, "Give me the information that was entered in. Let me investigate for you." So I did. Well, they entered the wrong socials. I can't fix that. So he said to me, "That's on me." But then we entered the correct social, and all the bells and whistles went off. for alert one. They hit 3 of his stores separately. That's 6 transactions. They hit a store from your background. We'll leave it at that. A company from your background, which is very, very prominent, which is in his town. They hit that. They hit one of those. Then they crossed the border into Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
And they hit a store there. So they ended up with 5 different locations, 5 transactions each. Now, do you remember earlier in the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned front end gives you a heads up warning on the history to verify information. If they were looking at their front end report, they would have seen that every other 6 months, Mr. and Mrs. dishonest customer were in Puerto Rico. So I called back Curly, and I said, well, Curly, first of all, if you want your product back, I'm willing to bet it's at a flea market in Puerto Rico. However, Curly, Larry, and Mo all got hit for over $20,000 combined. Now, could that have been saved? Yes. Alert one at 15, and all you have to do is get 1 per year, and you pay for the whole year plus some. Because the average charge-off for a book charge-off at rent-to-own, as I understand it, runs between $400 and $700. So if that's still accurate, I believe it is, and you're only paying $15 a month for alert one, how many months can you go on $700 before So you catch one, and you will catch several. Absolutely. So you can connect companies, you can connect stores within companies. It gives you the alert. You call over and say, "Hey, Pete, you had John Smith at your store last Thursday. What happened with that?" I just wasn't feeling it. Oh, I rented a TV to him. Yeah, guess what he's looking for today? A TV. And guess what he's about to go south on in 2 stores? 2 TVs. Is it designed to turn them down? No. But if somebody was across the street at your competitor and they got a dining room set last week, and they're looking at a dining room set in your store this week, what are the odds that somebody needs 2 dining room sets simultaneously? I'm going
from 2 different companies.
Not so good. Yeah. So that's alert one. And the beauty of it is we can connect companies, which is something that we haven't done a lot of. There's people that are worried about, if they come into my store and they call over and they say, well, that company over there said this, that, and the other. That's a training issue. That's a simple training issue to let people know we just can't serve you today. That's all you got to say. You don't have to give them a reason. It's your business. So there's your 3 big new ones. Your alert one, your criminal background checks for your new hires, and your SkipFind Plus. And you mentioned earlier, what do you do? Because we never circled back to it. With the customer that does not collect all of the information, like Social Security numbers, we have a way to do that as well. We can actually produce a pursue report for you with no Social Security number. If you only collect the last 4 digits, we set it up where you only process the last 4 digits. All these things
How
have
accurate
developed.
is that when you say that? If you don't have a Social Security number, because going into the end, I mean, you're literally giving me some good stuff here. But if you don't have a social, or you have at least the last 4, how accurate are those compared to a full social?
Okay, so let's say you come into my rent-to-own store, and I don't collect socials. And we have some big ones out there that don't. Rent-A-Center doesn't collect socials. Aaron's doesn't collect socials. There's a lot that don't collect. Some collect the last 4. Some don't collect any. So what do we do with those? Everybody, Social Security or not otherwise, has one of these little suckers right here. And with that comes a number.
Cell phones are going to end the world. Let me tell you, cell phones are, they're just everywhere now.
They are huge. And whether it's a cell phone or a landline or a VoIP, as I mentioned at the very beginning of today's show, any one of these is connecting to that person at some time. Now, phone numbers are regurgitated. They're reprocessed. You get yours disconnected. 6 months later, it belongs to somebody else. How often do you get a phone call? Hey, is Pete Shau there? I don't know who that is. I've had this phone for a year. That's who owned it before. So when you run a pursue going through our phone verification system, it'll come back. Let's say I'm running it on you, and I get back 10 Pete Shaus. Or I get back, not even that. I get back 10 people connected to that phone number. I scroll through, and you're only running 1 transaction. You're not getting charged for 10. You're just getting charged for the 1. You scroll through Jane Smith, John Doe, Billy Bob, Mary Larry, and then suddenly Pete Shau. Oh, there's my guy. And there's your pursue report.
Okay.
And now you can take that apart and find out, where's Pete hiding? Is he staying with his son? Is he staying with his parents? Is he staying with his siblings? Gee, I got Pete Shau's ex here. And my experience is when you get somebody's ex and you're trying to fight him, they'll tell you everything.
A little tip from Dan. So, Dan, before I go to, because I like to do some lightning quick questions at the end, but just real quick, we talked about there was subscription based and then there's action based. Basically, a transaction happens and then you get charged. What differences or what products have the differences? What products have a subscription based versus the transaction based?
Okay, so our only two products that we have that would be used by this audience that are subscription based is the SkipFind Plus and the Alert One. Okay, because we have to maintain those systems and whatnot. So those are subscription based with a monthly fee per location per store. Everything else falls in two categories: either an a la carte purchase or a unlimited access. So let me break it down for you. Our Skip products, Pursue and People Find, are always a la carte. We couldn't do those in an all packaged flat rate service. But what we did do is we offered them a la carte with no record return, no charge. So we either give you back a report or you don't pay for it. You don't pay for the submission. Okay. Then on the front end, we also have a la carte for all the different elements of a verification: address, social security number, verify that the landlord's legit, verify that their employer exists. If you take checks or you want to make sure they're not using stolen or lost debit cards, you can ping their financial institution. We actually ping the financial institution directly and come back with a report on their relationship with their bank. Personal references up to 6. All these things are in that verification on the front end. Now you can run those a la carte, but here's the fun part about rent to own. If you are running more, if it hits on all of those factors, okay, everything you put in comes back with a verification. And they do. I mean, it's amazing how much information pings through. I'd say at least 95% or better accuracy on coming across. 95% is a good number.
That's a great number.
I mean, if 95% of your patients as a brain surgeon survive, you are a very, very rich brain surgeon. So
yeah,
no doubt about it. So we came up with a way some years ago, and we still maintain it, where you can get an unlimited access. Now, I say unlimited access with air quotes, is what we did was we took the national average at the time of how many transactions the average rent-to-own processed in a month. And that's those 3 that I talked about earlier: new, upgrade, or reactivation. The average rent-to-own nationwide at that time was 125 per month. We didn't want to cap it there, so we added another 50 and we called it 175. So we have a flat fee of $85 a month in the rent-to-own industry, is where it started. Okay, then we tweaked it, and now it depends on the industry, but it's a flat fee. Once you have run 16 a la carte transactions in a month in a store, you've exceeded the unlimited access rate. 16. And if you're only running 16, you're not in business very long.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
So we came up with that unlimited access. You can run it. Now, if you've got 10 stores, the unlimited access is 775 per location. We add them together. Now you got 1,775. So if you got one store that ran 80 and one store that ran 200, there's no overage charges. It's your flat fee.
Oh.
So there's the a la carte and the flat fee up front, and then there's the a la carte for Skip Trace, and then there's the 2 products that are subscription based.
Nice. Well, Dan, I want to ask some quick questions. Not that I'm trying to put you on the spot, but I'm trying to put you on the spot.
Oh no.
If I'm a new retailer, right? I'm a new guy. I've opened up my location. I'm new to this. I'm not sure what DataTrue does yet. If you were going to say in a bite-sized chunk, what would you say to new RTO dealers right now is the most important thing that they can get out of DataTrue?
I would say you want to be sure of your clientele, so verify their information when you begin a relationship, and have a tool in your toolbox that helps you find people that take off with your stuff. And we provide both.
Okay. If you were to give one bit of advice about DataTrue, and let's say I had to pick one, I'm an RTO dealer. I'm going to pick one. In your opinion, what would you say? I've got all these. This is the one that I'm going to recommend to you.
The core of DataTrue, Pete, is that front-end verification. We think we know our clients. It's a small town. I see this client at the grocery store all the time. It takes away that personal, I'm going to make the decision, and puts everybody on an even playing field. Verify the information to be true and clean from the beginning. You save a fortune. And it's not just the lost product. How much labor do you spend knocking on doors, having a vehicle, paying gas, making phone calls? You'll spend more money collecting than you make profit on the product. And that's a hidden cost that we don't even think about. So if you can avoid 1 out of 3, you're not only saving the product, but you're saving everything that goes in. You guys are not in the collection business. That's what we do. You're in the sales business. You don't hire collectors. So how expert collector are people in the retail industry? It's a value added service that they have to provide as an employee, because that's the nature of the beast. But if you have a tool that does that for you, verify, get the information on the front end. That is key. And have tools available to you when you need them for those that slip. And they will slip by. There are some that slip by. There is no perfect system.
There are.
So that's why we have
I'm here to tell you, it happens all the time. Last question on the lightning round. What do you see coming up for DataTrue and the RTO industry in the near future? Let's say in the next 5 years. Is there something coming down the pipe? Is there some direction that you see it taking? Is there something that you like, you know what, we're not there yet, but I can definitely see this being a part of the RTO industry and DataTrue at this point in time because?
Well, in the RTO industry, I think verifying information and the skip trace products, with the expansion of collecting for front-end alerts, finding people ongoing. I think, of course, barring the next great suggestion that comes from people in the RTO industry, if we have the ability to build it, we will build it. If you build it, they will come, right, Kevin Costner?
That's it.
And I think that is I think that is really where we are going with this. I think in the RTO industry, one of the things we're finding is there are a lot of lateral businesses that are owned also by RTO owners that don't even get a thought. For example, I have RTO owners that own apartment buildings, duplexes, things like that. What can we do for them? Do you take applications from tenants? Do you want to run a criminal background check to make sure if you own an apartment building that you're not introducing into a family environment somebody who's a sex offender?
Great.
There are lateral services that can serve the clientele that are currently being served, and they don't even think about saying, "Wait a second, I can use DataTrue over here. I have a pawn shop. I could use DataTrue on the pawn side. I can use DataTrue on the rental side." So I do see those layers that are being carried on the back of the clientele in RTO that it can be expanded to provide additional services.
I love it. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure having you on. I know we wanted to do this for a long time. You've been in the industry for forever. You've got a lot going on, and I love to hear all the new things that you have as far as services to the RTO industry, the expansion into the sheds, and furthermore, anything that we can get going. If somebody wanted to reach out, now I don't know anybody who might not know you, but just in case they don't, how would they reach out to Dan? How do they reach out to DataTrue and get your services?
Of course, the easiest way is to come see him at any of our shows coming up, whether it's the Midwest Expo, whether it's World, RTO Trib, Shed Week. I'll be out at David David's place in Indiana, and so we go to a lot of the shows. But if you wanted to reach out to me either electronically, you can email me. Real simple, djobrack@datatrue.net. So it's my first initial and my last name. Or you can email Ryan Farnsworth. It's ryanf@datatrue.net. Or you can email info@datatrue.net. Or you can call our office. Our corporate headquarters is in Pasadena, and you can push a button on there. I think it's button number 2, and you'll get the Sales and Business Development Division. That's my division that reports to me directly, that is responsible for this, for the RTO industry. That phone number is 626-396-8271, and then it's extension 2, and then you'll get a list of who you can contact, me or Ryan. You can find us there. So either an email or a phone call is the easiest way to reach us at any time. And with these today, you count on, if you don't want to take a phone call, fine, but you can't outrun the emails. If you didn't write down my email address or the phone number, just go to datatrue.net.
You can't outrun the emails, can't outrun the cell phones. I think everybody has one. Guys, let me tell you, Dan, so glad that you were able to come on and talk about DataTrue a lot, because it's one of the things that I wanted to get into. There are resources out there. DataTrue has a whole lot of them. If you guys want to know more, make sure you reach out to Dan. Make sure you find out what's going on at DataTrue. But if you want to know more about the podcast, hit me up, Pete at the RTO Show Podcast.com. Make sure you go to the website also at www.thertoshowpodcast.com. Literally, go on there, look around, sign up for the newsletter, become a sponsor. You can buy some swag. You can look like me right here with this shirt or any other color that you like. You can also have the ability to go on there and kind of see the events and what's going on in the future. Dan mentioned that DataTrue is going to be in some of these events. Well, if you want to know what those events are or what's happening, you're welcome to go onto the website, check it out. You're going to see what's coming on in your area. Dan, again, I appreciate it. I love you being on the show. Thank you so much. And I'm going to tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.